Hello, this is Harry Paden. I'm the host of the Paden Perspective, and this is Season 2, Episode 2. Thank you very much for those who have taken the time to look at my information. I had a little break, a couple of life events, a couple of dear people who passed on. I had a backache. It took me down for a few days, but I'm back. And I wanted to share some more. As I said last episode, is that I'm an author for the first time of a book entitled A Living Testimony, How to Raise America's Nightmare Educated Children of Color. And I'm very enthused about it. I gave some information last week, and I just want to continue because I'm going to give you a little insight into why I wanted to write the book. The book was okayed for publication the 27th of November, which was last year, in the midst of all the elections and election racketeering and all that. I also had it copyrighted by the Library of Congress, which means that it's historic. It'll be there if Martians come and they want to go through the big, humongous files of the Library of Congress. Somewhere they'll spot it and say, look, there's a guy named Harry Paden that published this book. So I'm immortal. Sorry. But the reason I wrote this book is near and dear to me. Many may know, some may not know, but I've been an advocate for education since I was in high school. When I was in high school, we did things like march on the Board of Education. We spoke at city council meetings. We even chained ourselves to the Board of Education headquarters. When we were young, we were fighters, we fought for education. That was around the time of a lot of the civil rights movements. And we were fighting to get our education. We demanded the same education that they were getting in the other suburban towns. Guess what? That fight is still there. What is happening is it's no longer a black and white thing. It's more of a suburban versus urban, because now finances have changed. So a lot of communities are integrated of various ethnicities. But that's the reason I wrote this book. And believe it or not, I began the process 10 years ago. And writing has always been easy for me. I never wrote a book, but I thought about writing it, and I started writing it, and it's a little bit of a task. I've never done it before, so didn't really have any instructions. Took a couple of courses and kind of helped, it didn't help, and I just wrote. And finally I started getting more of it done, and I would reread it, ask people to read it. Nobody wanted to read it, it's okay. And then the biggest problem came, not the writing part, that was easy. Easy for me at least, was getting it published. Who would publish it? And then I started finding out about self-publishing. Very complicated process there. When you self-publish, you pay to publish. That's basically what it is. You could publish a book, but you're going to pay someone to publish it, to print it, to edit it, to do all the things, get your ISBN number. All those things have a cost to it. No one's doing it for free. Very few people. I didn't find anyone. So as I went through the process, I got a little intimidated because once you put your name out there, you're getting calls from all the book companies and all of them, and they got great plans, and you're comparing. And I just never could get through that process. So finally, I like to just give thanks. How I got the book published was that I published it myself without any of those publishing companies. And it was thanks to advice from my beautiful daughter, Jacqueline White. She's a published author of 2 books, screenplays, enormous talent, great things in her future. But she said, why don't you try Kindle books? And I said, Kindle books? That was just another publishing company. And she told me the process. And I went to their site. They have, it's called KDP University, where they take you through the steps of publishing your book. And it's very, very extensive, takes a lot of time. And I got a little intimidated with that. Wow, you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to. Oh man, forget it. I don't need to publish that book. But then I like to just thank Reverend Cornelius Martin for staying on my back. Come on, Paden. Book is finished, so you got to do it. And so he stayed on my back because at some point I was thinking of giving up. And finally, the book is here. So, a living testimony: How to Raise America's Nightmare, Educated Children of Color, is basically my living testimony. I was born in Harlem, stayed in Harlem till the 4th grade. My family moved from New York, Harlem, New York, to Newark, New Jersey. And most of us know how the world in general sees Harlem and Newark. If you say those names, people get a certain perspective. Harlem has a Harlem Renaissance and many great things, great musicians, great poets, authors, a lot of great things. The Apollo Theater, Rucker, many great things. But most of the things are probably on the more negative side. Newark the same way. Tremendous city, tremendous opportunities. Millions of people are making millions of dollars in that city every day. So as much as they talk about it, it becomes a haven for people to make millions of dollars. But again, those perceptions is what I'm talking about. And I come from there, and as society sees me, if I say I come from Harlem or Newark, they expect a certain product. And I'm here to represent an anti-product to what they think. I speak well, I read well, I write well. And that's because I took advantage of the education system that was available to me. I attended all urban schools. I didn't go to Catholic, I didn't go to private. I went to all urban schools. Urban schools are the ones with the books that are less than, the overcrowded classrooms. Sometimes you get uncaring teachers, administrators, and all the other problems. You know what I mean, beat up, dilapidated, there it goes, buildings, and everything. All my schools had them problems. But I came there to learn, so I opened my eyes, I opened my ears, and I listened, and guess what? I started learning, and it became fun to me. And I always look back and think, why? I think because I didn't have Denzel looks. I wasn't that cute boy in the class all the girls were chasing. I wasn't a tough guy, wasn't a punk, but I wasn't a tough guy. So none of those things were my reputation. My reputation was, that's that smart guy. That's that smart boy. And I liked that because that was something I could hold on to. And the more they said it, the more I liked to be smart. And I kept learning. And it was easy for me after a while. School was so easy. Go home, do the homework. Teacher, oh, no, Paden, put your hand. What? I did my homework too. But because they knew I knew it, they shunned me. Unfair, but that's what happened. But that's a part of the story that I'll get into later. Not long. So, growing up in these neighborhoods, again, I always excelled in academia. Sports and everything I did well, but, academia was what I always was known for. Let's go to an experience. When I went to the seventh grade, my class, I had graduated or was graduated from Quitman Street School, right there in the heart of Newark. And next year, instead of them going to West Kenny, which is what school my brother was going to at the time, living in the same house, they said, you're going to Webster Junior High. They called them junior high schools then. What? Webster? Where's that? Well, it's way across town, and we're going to have to bus you to it. No clue why. Nobody sat us down. Nobody explained anything to us. Not my parents. Maybe they didn't know. Not the school system. I knew they knew, but they didn't explain it to us or nothing. All we knew is that the next September, you come to Quitman Street School, and there'll be buses to take you to Webster Junior High School. That's what we did. Got on the bus, a whole nother experience, because if you rode on the bus with a bunch of junior high school kids, there's a lot of taunting, a lot of everything, you know, flirting with girls, flirting with guys, all kinds of stuff. That was a whole experience in itself, riding on a bus. And I was a type kid, though I was smart, I always liked to be with the cool kids, so I sat in the back of the bus, and that left you subject to taunts and stuff like that, and that toughened me. I like, I ain't nobody's punk. I ain't big, you know, but I ain't nobody's punk. So I got in a lot of fights, and that affected me, you know, because it affected your grade. Harry's a great student, but he gets a lot of fights because I don't take no stuff, but I got in a lot of fights. And life was okay, but I didn't, you know, I wasn't all that happy with the fights, but most of the fights were because kids didn't like it when you were smart. They didn't say the word nerds back then, but I forget what they said. You know, they called you names and stuff and said you're trying to be white. They said I was trying to be white. But that was the dilemma. But here's the bigger part, and I'm going to move on. At Webster, turns out Webster, previous to us being bused to Webster, was predominantly Polish and Italian children, because Webster was up in the North Ward, you know, up off of near Bloomfield Avenue and all those areas up there. So didn't realize that all of a sudden there was a whole bunch of white people. Oh, okay. You know, again, we're kids, we don't know nothing. I hung with the kids I knew, they hung with the kids they knew. But the dynamics of that interaction, next thing you're sitting, oh, white kid, because I was in the class with mostly white kids because I was one of the smarter kids. It just happened that way. So I'm looking around, okay, one of my friends here, I'm making new friends, everything's cool. But the long story short of that is that I didn't thrive well in that environment. I think a couple of reasons. One, because maybe at Quitman, maybe the education they gave to me wasn't at the top superior level, because again, it was overcrowded, a lot of different issues. Kids seem to be smart, like, whoa, I ain't cover that to teach, right? Well, you got to catch up. Okay, nothing I could do. I was one of the only, you know, few that was there. It was a few of us. So then I started getting B's and C's. A C to me was like an F to everybody else. And I freaked. I started getting in trouble, fighting, because I was rebelling. I didn't know what was going on. My whole identity was stolen from me. I wasn't the smartest guy in the class. Girls were always smart, so there's always smart girls. I didn't know what to do. Didn't have nobody to talk to. I didn't talk to my parents about it. Wasn't nobody else talking to me about it. Didn't know what was going on. Remember what Kamala said during the debate when she talked about her busing experience. I'm going to write a book about that one day, but I want to move on. Bottom line at Webster, I did get to the 9th grade, 7th, 8th, got to the 9th grade. Again, my grades were grades that I just never had gotten. B's and C's, I could barely get an A. And I really didn't know that. Looking back, it might have been simply race, you know, because I'm not good enough to get a B from that teacher, because, you know, he's one of those guys. That might have been it. Maybe I wasn't working hard enough. Maybe I wasn't smart enough. But I rebelled. And finally, Webster did what they could to correct my behavior. But finally, me and a Caucasian guy, and his name was Billy, I'm not going to give his last name, one of the mischievous kids, we set a desk on fire. We put some paper in the desk. And Billy's crazy. Billy was crazy. But I hung with Billy because it was just cool. Billy said, watch this. I said, no, Billy, don't. Boom. He set the desk off. Hey, the desk, burned a little bit. And then we got in trouble because I was a part of it. I put the paper in, he burnt it. They kicked me out of Webster. I went back and I got put in Central, and life changed a little bit because at Central I was able to do much better. The kids were, again, they weren't that super intelligent kids that intimidated me the way they did at Webster. Maybe the teachers, didn't have the same level of white versus black judging. I don't know. But at Central, though I was in the 9th grade, I was in classes in the 10th grade. I was with older kids. So it was always another dynamic, Older kids could beat you up. Just get in fights again. I mean, I can't believe. I probably could look back and say, I got in a fight almost every day, man. I really did. Not every day, but at least once a week. But it toughened me, But the one thing they do is that Harry's going to fight you back. I wasn't a runner, but I should have ran. So at Central, I did really good. I mean, I got, I was cooler. I was a smart kid. That's Harry. Teachers love me. I love class. The fights, because people didn't like you being smart. But that was part of my life. And the end of my sophomore year, I went to, because of my intelligence, they sent me as a representative of Central, the only one kid that got chosen, girl or boy, to Princeton University during the summer. Me and a bunch of kids from throughout the state of New Jersey, people from Trenton, Camden, all the urban cities, because we were all black and Hispanic, went to Princeton. We lived on the dorm. I actually lived in a dorm. My roommate is the Right Reverend Wilson, Robert Wilson. That was my roommate. We still know each other and friends on Facebook today. We went to school, and they gave us educational tips and things to kind of help us and make us do better, even though we were some of the most intelligent kids in all the schools that we attended. So it helped us, and we were competing with each other because I've always been very competitive education-wise. But it was a fair judge, so I was able to excel because I had to work twice as hard, and I worked twice as hard and kept up and, did good. We had fun. Fights, yeah. Again, I always can't get away from those fights, but it wasn't the same kind of fights. We had little, intelligent people fights. We might have fought with words and stuff. We didn't do the same kind of ghetto fights, like that. But it was fun. I loved it. The other thing they got us into was a regimen of exercise. To this day, I'm still in, pretty good shape. The guns are here, I'm crazy, but I'm serious. We got up in the morning, did exercises and stuff. We weren't used to that, but we got used to it because they did it every day. We stayed there. I believe it was just July. Forget the exact time, but I think it was a month. Whole month, every day, got up. But the other thing that they did, they helped us because when I went back to school, I was so super intelligent. You thought I was smart then. I was super intelligent now because they had put so much information into us, about different things. But the main thing they did was teach us Black African American history. That was the first place I found out that black people were somebody. Nobody ever, in our history books, we were slaves, and, Crispus Attucks was the first person to die, yay, But I learned about Africa. I learned about black warriors. I learned about things. Man, I came back to Central, and I was different. I was like, whoa, I don't like where I live. I was living in the projects at the time. I'm getting out of here. People look at you like, you getting out of here. Where you going? You ain't going nowhere. The haters. But I was stirred up. I was fired up. And I got into a whole different spirit things. I started dressing different and dashikis and stuff. And I used to follow Mayor Baraka's father. Uh, uh, Lord have mercy. I just lost the train of thought. But, I used to follow the great Imamo. and he taught us. And I was saying back then, or his saying back then, it's nation time. It's nation time. And we used to go around and do good things, but we stood up, and there was a big war. Guess what? With the Italians, the same school system that I had problems with at Webster, not the school system, but it was a big Italian black problem. You have to do your history for that. I don't have enough time. But we stood up for ourselves. Then came the Black Power movement. Black Power. We were really revolutionary kids. And like I told you, in my high school. But the next summer, because I was designated the smartest boy in school, because that's how I was, because I thought I was. I acted like I was, and didn't anybody challenge me. I was beat for that, So next summer, who's the smartest? Paden. They sent me as the representative of Central High School. London, Germany, Sweden, Czechoslovakia, Finland, so many places. I'm forgetting some of them. We started in July. We met up in Connecticut, and this was a mix of kids, white kids, brown kids, poorer white kids, richer. This one friend, my friend Eddie. I went to his house, man. It was like the Carlton house, like the Fresh Prince house. Like, you live here? But he was my best friend. And he was a cool person. He was cool. Eddie wanted to be cool because he was like Carlton and those, he was cool. He was my best friend. And we traveled. And I'll get into those travels, but that changed my life. And I'm this person because of some of those experiences. So I write about that in this book. I give some insights on how I was raised to be America's nightmare, because America don't like what I'm doing right now. They don't like that I'm giving information. They don't like that I'm able to write a book. They don't like that I was able to retire from a job, getting a pension, getting Social Security, and living where I don't have to ever work a day in my life. And I'm so comfortable. I bought a sports car. Retired. Not bragging, that's fact. I started a company. I couldn't get the company off the ground because I had to work. Now my company, I have clients. I'm making money. And that's all while we're in COVID. That's all while the last 4 years we've been on a cloud of leadership. I can't wait to see what happens once this new administration is in and it's a whole different atmosphere. But this book just gives a lot of that information. It talks about me, how I got through those situations and how those situations helped me. Finally, after I was graduated, I was number 3 student. I wasn't valedictorian, I wasn't salutatorian, but I was a number 3 student. And they made them make me make a speech because I was such a great talker. You got to have Harry make a speech. And here's the main reason that they pressured them, because they didn't want me to speak. Because I spoke off the cuff. I spoke about pigs and revolutions not being televised. I was one of those radical kids. I wore buttons with, guns and stuff because I thought I was a little mini Black Panther. I was a piece of work. But I was so intelligent that they couldn't touch me. Because I knew what I was. I had traveled the world, So when they decided the schools, the whole process, and I didn't have any parents who were really, familiar with that. I sent out to schools and stuff like that. I think I only sent out to about 5 or 6 schools. And no one suggested a HBCU. As a matter of fact, when I said I want to go to Howard, because everybody knew Howard, they said, you better, I don't even want to say it. You better than that. Now look at where Kamala Harris, the vice president, what her alma mater is, Howard. But they shunned me away from Howard because I was a smart kid. Here's the schools we want you to apply to. And I applied to a bunch of schools, unbeknownst to me. And I got accepted to American University. American is a prestigious school. Doctors, lawyers, scientists, some of the greatest minds come out of American University, comparable to any Ivy League school. So I went to that school. Oh, smart Harry. I'm so smart. I got there, y'all, just like the Webster experience. Them teachers start opening their mouths, and I start like, oh, I take some more notes. And it was a real challenge. And I really didn't do as well as I would have wanted, but the book covers that because it's a real culture shock to many of our top students especially, because we so smart and everybody knows we smart. But when you go out to those schools, suburbia versus urban, not black, white, suburban, urban, suburban school students are just a little bit more intelligent because they go to schools that are pushed. If I had went to one of those schools, I might have been a super brilliant person. Because again, my competitive spirit, if I was Judge Feely. But I got out there, it wasn't a good experience for me academically, but I discovered football, and my life became encompassed with football. The first day that I went there, my big brother and we took the bus from Newark to school. All right. That's how it was. And he took me to school. Got there, got on campus, walked through the hall. Oh, sharp-eyed Harry looked to the left. There was a bulletin board, you know, college bulletin boards. Football practice at 3 o'clock. Y'all, it was 2 o'clock. I said, James. I said, I'm going to practice. He said, man, you ain't even. I said, James, you can go ahead back to the bus station because I'm going to football practice. I literally took my stuff in my room, threw it down, and when I tell you, my life became football because I went to practice. And I was okay. I was good. I mean, I really was. I started every game. One game I didn't start. That's because the coach benched me because I missed practice. I was a hot dog. But anyway, I started every game, you know, for the years that I was out there. And I was pretty good. But that became my life. Football, girls, football, girls, football, girls. Academics, yeah. Okay, I think I'll go to this class. So but I cover that because there was nobody back home saying, Paden, what's going on? What's this grade here? My parents had only 8th grade education. My mother had passed by that time. They didn't know what was going on. I was on my own. No guidance counselor called me up and say, Paden, how you doing? No citizen society. How we should do our kids when they get sent off, the aunts, uncles. How you doing? Check up on them. Anything you need. Another dynamic that I had, I was poor. Them kids were rich. Kids came to school with new stereos. I didn't even have a camera. Culture shock. This book covers that. And that's why I wrote it. And I'm sharing it because I'm not looking to make $1 million off of it. If I sell one book to one person that benefits, one parent that benefits and helps their children with their self-esteem, with knowing the pitfalls, knowing the ins and outs. Send your kid to an HBCU. I would have never had the experience. I would have been off the football team before they let my grades slip the way they slipped at American University. Thank you guys for listening. It's something I'm passionate about. I love writing. I love it with a passion, and I've been doing it so easy for me. I have another book. My second book will be out. I finished it. I gotta do some more editing and design a cover, but that book should be out within 2 weeks. Easily 2 weeks. If it's 2 weeks, that's too long. And it's called Now You Tell Me. Facts/history not taught in most schools. And it's not most urban schools, it's not most American schools, it's most schools. And I cover subjects like the Black Codes, Black Wall Street, the real information about Native Americans, Hispanic Americans, Haiti. We just celebrated January 1st, Haitian independence. Why all the countries hate Haiti? Because they was the first African nation that got their freedom from slavery. They hate that country. They have vowed never to see that country prosper. You didn't know that? That's in my book. See you next time. To God be the glory. Sometimes I get impassioned. But I'm crazy about doing the opposite of what some in America think we can't do. Yes, I talk well. Yes, I do. To God be the glory. Thank you.